Before 1990, the world was a different place. Obstacles excluded almost 1/5 of our nation's population from participating fully and meaningfully in American life. In the years since, the Americans with Disabilities Act has brought new construction, new opportunities, new productivity, new contributions. The evidence for inclusion is almost everywhere. Almost. Hello, I'm Alex Acosta, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the Department of Justice. The Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, has opened the way for people with disabilities to join the mainstream of American life. Now more people with disabilities are enjoying access to businesses, goods, and services than ever before. Even so, there is still much misunderstanding about this law. Some businesses mistakenly think that they don't have anything to do. But the truth is, the ADA affects all businesses that provide goods and services to the public. Here are some of the reasons small businesses give for not complying with the ADA.
Yes, I know about the Americans with Disability Act, but it doesn't have much influence here. I don't know any disabled people in this area.
It might be that people with disabilities are right in your neighborhood, but they can't patronize your business because it's inaccessible. According to the Census Bureau, almost half of all people over 65 have a disability. There are already more than 50 million people with disabilities in the United States. That means almost 1 out of every 5 Americans. And we know that this number will keep growing and growing as our population ages. In fact, the number of adults aged 65 and over is projected to double by the year 2030. That's a lot of potential customers. But do they have money to spend? Absolutely. People with disabilities have $175 billion in discretionary spending power. That's more than twice the spending power of the teenage market and more than 4 times the spending power of the market for 8 to 12-year-olds. As you can imagine, accessibility affects where people with disabilities spend their money. You're missing a lot of customers if you're discounting people with disabilities, along with their families, their friends, and their colleagues with whom they go out to shop or eat or enjoy a movie.
This hardware store has been here for 22 years, and we're grandfathered in, so the Americans with Disabilities Act really doesn't apply to me.
There is a common misperception that older buildings are exempt from the ADA. They are not. There's no grandfather provision in the ADA. There are grandfather provisions in building codes, but the ADA isn't a building code, it's a civil rights law.
This is a new building. It has a great access. I think that we're doing everything we need to do to be in compliance with the law.
Well, it's great that you're in a new building, but there are other considerations. You know, a blocked aisle basically is a barrier for somebody with a disability to independently get around your store. There are things like your operating policies and procedures that you need to consider. You also need to consider how to effectively communicate with people who have a visual disability.
You come with extension, sure. 10 feet, extension USB.
Speech difficulties or hearing disabilities. Sign language interpreters, it really depends on the kind of situation that we're talking about. For instance, if you have someone who is asking directions and they're deaf to where a restroom is, either gesturing or writing a note would be sufficient. But if you have a situation that is either like a legal matter or a medical matter, and you're speaking to a client or a patient, then that's much more serious and an interpreter would be needed.
We've had the occasions where we have had, people who have come who were handicapped, and on those occasions what we basically do is I or my staff have assisted them in getting in. Over the years, we've considered putting in access ramps and things of that nature, but as you can see, this is a small business in a small community, and we just have not been able to afford to do it right now.
Well, I mean, there are going to be costs involved, and it's true. But the ADA, when you're talking about an existing business, your small business in an older building, you don't have to go through and gut your building and make every single change in the world. What you need to do is to remove barriers that are readily achievable. And that just simply means things you can do without a lot of difficulty and without a lot of expense. And you don't have to do every single thing at once. You know, you can look at what you can do right now, and then you can make that change. And if you can't afford to do something, you do it later, do it the following year. I mean, the important thing is getting folks with disabilities into your door. And there are tax credits and there's tax deductions that small businesses can take every single year. But the really critical thing is that you do something and you do it now.
Unfortunately, I do not own the shop, and I asked the landlord to help me out, but he said that it costs too much, so we just deal with it as it is.
Being a tenant in a building doesn't really get you off the hook. Both you and your landlord have responsibilities under Title III of the ADA. You, of course, are going to have more responsibility for the areas that you control, that is from your front door in. There are certain things you can do. You can make your door easy to open, you can rearrange furniture, you can move shelves around, things of that sort that may substantially increase the accessibility to your office.
I'm just afraid that, being a small business owner, I don't want to upset the wrong person, and if I do, it's going to have a chain effect, a ripple effect that's going to hurt me down the road, and I think I'm just afraid I might embarrass them or embarrass me, and I don't want to make anybody angry, and I don't want to sound like a jerk that way, but that's just the truth of it.
I think a lot of people are uncomfortable, especially when they're first interacting with someone with a disability, because it's an unknown. It's something that they haven't had much experience with before. When I come into your store, what you need to do is not be afraid to say hello to me and ask me if you can help me just because I'm sitting in a wheelchair. Treat me like you do your other customers, and don't offer unsolicited help. But if I say, could you assist me with reaching something or any other kind of help, then just go ahead and do that. The important thing is people with disabilities aren't any different. They want to be treated fairly and honestly, with dignity, with respect, just like everybody else.
I would like to follow the law, but I don't know where to call or who to contact.
Sí, debes darnos una llamada. If you need information on the Americans with Disabilities Act, you can call our office at 800-514-0301, or if you use a TDD machine, you can call 800-514-0383. There are specialists who work on the lines 5 days a week, and they will answer your questions. You can also get our information on the internet site that we have, ada.gov. You can look at that day or night, and that will answer all your questions, or it should help you answer all your questions on the ADA.
I do have a lot of disabled customers come over here, and most it's on a wheelchair. I have no problem with that, but the main thing here is I'm not sure. It's the law allow me to have the dog or animal. I'm not sure on that. I'm not sure.
Yes, you do have to allow service animals into your business. A service animal is specially trained to provide a specific task for someone with a disability. And a service animal is allowed to accompany someone with a disability anywhere in your store that customers are generally allowed to go. And these include businesses such as doctor's offices, restaurants, hotels, movie theaters, and even when you have a state law that prohibits animals or pets, such as a local health law, service animals under the ADA are allowed to go into those facilities.
once you start, where does it end? Listening devices we might need, Braille we might need, and certainly our labels, to have to put those in Braille would certainly be difficult. And it just doesn't end there. It's so much more.
No, you really don't have to have Braille on your labels in your store, on the canned goods in your store. You can simply have a clerk in your store read the label to a person who is blind. You don't have to have a listening device in your store if you are willing to simply pass notes back and forth to a person who is deaf. The law really is about common sense, about allowing a person with a disability to come into your store and have access to your goods and services. The law does have limits. You are not required to do anything that causes you significant difficulty or expense.
Well, none of the other businesses here do that. They haven't gotten in trouble for it. I mean, it's expensive. Why do I need to do that?
Because it's the law. If people with disabilities can't access your goods and services, and you don't make any effort to comply with the ADA, you could face lawsuits and complaints of discrimination against your business. And besides, it just makes good business sense. Compliance with the ADA and free market principles truly can go hand in hand. Remember, people with disabilities have $175 billion in discretionary spending power. That's a big market that's only going to get bigger. If you have any questions about the ADA, log on to our website or call us. Our website is ada.gov. Our phone numbers are 1-800-514-0301 for voice or 1-800-514-0383 for TTY.